The pre-show has started.
Hello, Think Twice Radio. Welcome to the Metachewy pre-show live stream. Uh, am I lagging a little bit on the...
Twitch has accepted the pre-show. YouTube has accepted the pre-show. Facebook has accepted the pre-show.
Test.
Shall I reset the timer?
Yeah. Is there a way to... It looks like I might be a little delayed.
Not to the people. Maybe in the studio, but not to the people.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you could reset
We
the
don't know why that delay is, by the way.
Interesting.
Okay, I'll set the time. I'll reset the timer, and when it says on the air, you're... Oh, yeah, when it says on the air, you're on the air, okay?
Okay, thank you. Hello, Think Twice Radio, and welcome to another episode of Metachewy Livestream. My name is Matthew Austin, also known as Metachewy Online. So welcome to my first show of 2026. Today, I got today's show structured like a hockey game. So we got 3 periods. The first period is going to be Austin's Agenda, where I'm going to talk about some of the most important local political issues. So we're going to talk about the the vacant state senator seat, the New York State Department of Transportation Kensington Expressway project, and then provide an update of the city of Buffalo has been sued for their police training facility near the Central Terminal. Then the second period will be Metachewy, where I'm going to kind of explore we'll explore the frontiers of internet and meme culture. We're going to do a segment on the Kabuto King and Pokemon cards. And this is the 30th anniversary of Pokemon cards. And then the third period, the final period, we're going to dive into Austin audits, where I'm going to provide some research and some auditing that I've done on issues related to City Hall. I think I filed the first FOIL request, so Freedom of Information Law request to Buffalo City Hall. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk a little bit about my civil service crusade that I'm on, exposing fraud in the City of Buffalo civil service system. So first, let's start with Austin's Agenda. And I think right now, as I record this is January 8th, 2025. Really the most urgent matter, I think, politically is we have a special election. So obviously with the new year, the city of Buffalo has a new mayor. So Mayor Sean Ryan was elected last year, and he was a state senator. So actually on the last day of 2025, he resigned his state Senate seat so he could become mayor, leaving a vacancy in the New York State Senate. So January 2nd, Governor Kathy Hochul called a special election, and we have a vacant seat that we're filling via special election. So it's kind of a unique thing, but also something that's becoming very, very usual, right? This idea that politicians leaving their seat vacant before their terms empty, and then essentially leaving it to party bosses to pick who will be in the elections. So I did have a chance to speak. There was a protest yesterday because yesterday the Erie County Democratic Committee, who are essentially the group of people that chose who the candidates are, met yesterday. And I said when I spoke briefly to the media that Bob Dylan had a song called "Only a Pawn in Their Game," and I kind of turned out to protest because I'm sick and tired of being a pawn in their game, it's literally a political game of musical chairs. Obviously Mayor Sean Ryan vacating his Senate seat is not the first one, right? We had earlier, just in the last few months and few years, we've had Congressman Brian Higgins resign his 2-year House of Representatives seat so he could go run Shays Theater. That left a vacancy that then State Senator Tim Kennedy is now a representative. And then his resigning left a seat vacant in the state Senate, which then led a county legislature abandoning their seat, leaving a vacancy there. Then we also had an Erie County legislature. Howard Johnson left his term early so he could be the deputy Board of Elections commissioner. And then the City of Buffalo Common Council chief of staff was appointed that seat. So it's really this game of political chairs of, and I mentioned yesterday too, I kind of grew up on the idea of democracy and people have the power, right? And I'm just sick of being a pawn in their game because it's this game where politicians abandon or vacant their seat. They don't do their full term, and then we have these special elections. So a couple things about the special elections, and kind of another thing that's weird with this special election is yesterday the Erie County Democratic Committee nominated Jeremy Zellner to be the candidate, to be the Democrat candidate. And who is Jeremy Zellner? So Jeremy Zellner is the chairman of the Erie County Democratic Committee. He's also the commissioner of the board of elections, or he resigned that post. So he's kind of had this role in local politics of kind of being a kingmaker of, right? He's been both working at the Erie County Board of Elections and the chairman of the Erie County Democratic Party. And it's kind of similar, right? Imagine politics like a game of football. And imagine, right, if the Buffalo Bills were in the AFC Championship game playing the Kansas City Chiefs, imagine if Andy Reid was both the coach of the Chiefs and the referee. It would make it extremely hard for an underdog to win or participate. So that's kind of the egregious nature of this case. So essentially some dates, and I have the printout. Essentially February 3rd, there will be a special election. And the governor called for a special election, not just in Buffalo, but obviously the New York City, Zoran abandoned his assembly district seats. There's a couple special elections around the state. By February 3rd, we'll have, will be the special election in the New York State 61st Senate District. And then in June, we'll actually have a real legitimate primary for this. So kind of the special election is just to see who serves the term for the rest of the year. But the issue with the special election is there's really a power of incumbency. So if Jeremy Zellner is able to become the incumbent state senator, then when he runs in the primary and in the general election later this year, he just has a tremendous advantage. Something to be, it kind of popped up on me too. But in a month we'll have an election, and that's a pawn in their game. I'm tired of being a pawn. I'm sure you are too, because democracy, somebody had a good quote of democracy dies if we don't have elections. And if just the special election, right, they're following the letter of the law, but when you have people in power that are both the referees and the players in the game, they kind of use the rules to their advantage, obviously. So that's, I think, the most important thing and the most urgent thing, because that's happening this month. And next month, this time, we'll have a new state senator. So that's a pawn in my game. I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about was the New York State Department of Transportation, the project formerly known as the Kensington Expressway Project, is now called Queen City Forward, or it's been branded Queen City Forward by the New York State Department of Transportation. So if you'll remember, just to bring people up to speed, originally New York State Department of Transportation, or NYSTOT, proposed a cap and tunnel of the 33, and their plan was to kind of just put a cover over the Kensington Expressway or the 33 and build a tunnel. And there was a community group called the East Side Parkways Coalition that ended up suing NYSTOT to, one, halt the project, but also to get more environmental studies. So the state actually failed to do what was the legally required full environmental impact statement, because this project is going to have a tremendous impact on the environment. And SECRA, or the State Environmental Quality Review, actually defines environment as something much broader. So you got to think of things like the economy, traffic, noise, pollution, community character are all parts of that. So Eastside Parkways was successful in their lawsuit, and the state did not appeal because they, as the judge said, you can't build a Tim Hortons in Western New York without doing an environmental impact statement. So the idea that the state could do, this generation's largest infrastructure project without one was inconceivable. So that's kind of to bring people up to speed. And where we are now is, there's been a complete reset on the project. So it's gone to what was, going to be a full-fledged project, and now they are literally at square one, or as in computer science, as they say, number zero. We're at zero. And I did go to an earlier listening session, and really that was kind of, I think, the thing we need to kind of deprogram ourselves with. This is a completely different project. And one of the things that when I went to the first listening session, all the maps that they had on display were, maps of the entire Kensington. So not just the Humboldt part in the city, but they had maps all the way out to the airport and even past the airport. So I really think that this game that NYSTOT's playing of environmental planning, really the field we're on has changed. So this is about Humboldt Parkway, but this is also Humboldt Parkway and the entire Kensington Expressway out to the airport. So they've kind of set it very broadly. But that was kind of my biggest takeaway of just seeing the maps of, okay, the actual field that we're on is different now. So that was just my perceptions, but it's still, this is again, back to square zero, a completely different project. And obviously, I'm a proponent of fully restoring Humboldt Parkway. And obviously, if you did that, you would need to consider how all the traffic, so dead ends. You can't just dead end a highway. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I think kind of what these listening sessions are, and the Nice Dots having a few different listening sessions where they're kind of doing these community events to get input. And really, what it's technically called is a planning charrette, because what you'll go into this community center or building, and I think when normal people think of listening, they think of a town hall, people are talking into microphones. But really what I think it's Labella Institute or Labella Engineers is the name of the firm that's been contracted by Nice Dot to do this environmental impact study. But they're doing something called a planning charrette, or a planning charrette. So you'll walk into this room, and at least how the first couple were set up is they have these boards, and they'll give you a bunch of Post-it notes, and there'll be some representatives from Nice Dot and also from Labella there answering questions, engaging with the community. And really it's a game of Post-it note warfare. So really the goal here is and what they're really doing in this planning charrette is they're kind of trying to quantize or community feedback, right? So they're going to literally count Post-it notes at the end to try to derive themes of what the community wants, or, when they're listening to us. So really it's a form of Post-it note warfare. The goal when you go to these events is, essentially, if you didn't write it down and put on a board, it didn't exist. So really, it's the goal is who can get the most Post-it notes on. So you get a roll of Post-it notes. Just sign those Post-it notes with your feedback. Put them on the maps. Put them on the question prompts. But make sure that you fill out Post-it notes and you put them on the boards, because that's how they're officially going to tally up what people think. So for Eastside Parkways, and I know proponents of restoring the Humboldt, what we need to do as a community is take Post-it notes. Right, restore Humboldt Highway, put it on. Restore Humboldt Highway, or restore Humboldt Parkway, put it on. Restore Humboldt Parkway, post it. Prioritize community health, post it. Bring back the Humboldt Parkway, post it. And just don't worry about repeating yourself, because there's no way to say who put up what. Just literally put your thoughts on the board. And because ultimately this stage that we're in, the early EIS phase, they're just scoping the project. So they're just kind of setting goals, setting objectives. And this is really, I kind of use the analogy of, we're planting trees here, right? So we're planting seeds, we're putting seeds into the soil. The seeds that we put in today are going to ultimately grow the project. Because if we have, a lot of people saying that we want the status quo, we want the highway as it is. If most of the Post-it notes say that is ultimately the tree we're going to be growing. So it's very important to get out, get your thoughts heard, and also learn. I think one of the things for me that was enjoyable is actually interfacing with the engineers, the planners, the architects that are actually writing the documents and doing the work. Because a lot of them, they're not political; they're just hired to do a job, and they are genuinely curious. So I encourage everyone. And actually, the next listening session, the future of New York State Route 33 Expressway, listening session number 3 is at the Cheektowaga Senior Citizen Center. So 3349 Broadway in Cheektowaga from 5 to 7. So again, January 2nd. 5 to 7 at the Cheektowaga Senior Citizen Center is the next listening session. And then also, so that was number 3. Number 4 will be February 5th. This is at the Amherst Center for Senior Services, 370 John James Audubon Parkway in Amherst from 5 to 7. So January 2nd, there will be a listening session at the Cheektowaga Community Center, 5 to 7. And February 5th, there will be a 4th listening session at the John J. Audubon Parkway Center or the Amherst Center for Senior Citizens, or out in Amherst. So if you can make either of those sessions, I encourage you to go to them and learn, give your feedback. And I think there's going to be a few more of these, but right now we just have 2 on the agenda. So the 22nd in Cheektowaga, and then February 5th. And just important to go participate. And let's all plant seeds to fully restore Humboldt Parkway. Now is the time to kind of plant those trees. It's in our Post-it notes. It might not feel like it, but that's what we're doing, is we're planting the Humboldt Parkway Post-it note by Post-it note. So I think that's also something that's, very urgent. And then finally, the third item on the Austin agenda, I wanted to talk about Lola et al. So Liberation for One, Liberation from All, which is a community group that's been opposing the city of Buffalo's plans for a police shooting and firing range built at the Matt Urban community center near the central terminal has officially filed a lawsuit along with 4 petitioners or residents that live in the immediate vicinity of the community center. So the city has, the city of Buffalo, along with the police department and the Common Council, is being sued by this community group and residents. The goal is to halt the construction of the facility. So it's kind of dovetails nicely with the East Side Parkways because a lot of the things that happen. So the group, the East Side Parkways Coalition, sued NISTOP because they didn't do an environmental impact statement. Where the lawsuit that Lola and the petitioners, Lola et al., are filing has some of the same thread. So I have a copy of the lawsuit here, but kind of the nature of the proceeding, and I'll summarize the lawsuit, right? Because there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and mainstream media coverage of this. I think the thing that's important to know is the City of Buffalo Police Department is planning on constructing a training facility and a firing range. The mainstream media mostly talks about a training facility, which, obviously we want officers training, but really the core of this lawsuit is around the firing range that they're proposing to build in the parking lot of the community center. So this is about a firing range ultimately in a residential neighborhood, because this Article 78 proceeding was filed within 4 months of the September 2nd, 2025 Common Council zoning map amendment for this facility. So in order to build a firing range in a residential neighborhood, or as the city green code says, a public safety facility, you can't build those in residential neighborhoods. So back in September, the Common Council approved a zoning map amendment that would change the community center zoning from residential to mixed use. And in a mixed use zone, public safety facilities are allowed. So this kind of action, this Article 78, which is a type of legal proceeding in New York State, was brought forward by Lola and these petitioners to challenge the Common Council's decision on the zoning map amendment. So there's the seeker of actually part of the lawsuit is saying that the state environmental quality review process was not done properly. Very similar to the Kensington of the Common Council. They've segmented the seeker. So part of state environmental quality review law or seeker is that you can't segment a project. So you can't cut a project up into slices, study them individually as you go along. You need to study everything up front, which is so everything. So to construct this project, you need to do a state environmental quality review. One, when you're planning, designing the facility, you need to identify things like zoning changes, zoning variances. And that's just not what the city did. They published the state environmental quality review after the zoning map amendment, and there's a whole lot of, I call it a candy land of procedural errors. It's a very linear process, and they kind of did a mumble jumble candy land of zoning procedures. So there's this actual state environmental quality review violations that this group feels that the city alleges. Another one is the parkland. 379 Paderewski, the Matt Urban Hope Center, was first built in 1949 as the Adam Blavatsky Post. And Adam Blavatsky was a World War I hero. He was the first resident of the city of Buffalo to die in World War I. And the Blavatsky Post was constructed in 49, and it really was this cultural center, as I understand it, for the Polish community and Polish immigrants and refugees that settled near the central terminal. So, but prior to that, it was actually a piece of parkland. It was called Polonia Park. So the actual parcel and one element of this lawsuit is actually challenging that there's a doctrine in New York State law that in order for a park to become not a park, the New York State legislature needs to authorize that, from my understanding. Right? So you can't just turn it into a park, because ultimately the parks belong to everyone. They belong to the people. So in order for a park to be stolen from the people, the representative body of the people, the New York State legislature, needs to authorize it. And this lawsuit alleges that that was never done. So actually part of the lawsuit is saying that the city cannot change the use of this facility from a community center into a police firing range without the New York State legislator authorizing that to occur. Which leads me to another part of the lawsuit, which is around the actual financing and the bonding. So the lawsuit alleges that actually the financing of the facility was not proper. One, this facility was initially proposed at 341 Seneca, and the state legislature, I think it was a year or two ago, they did authorize the changing of the bond for the previous facility to the new location. but they did not do obviously the parkland thing. But then when the Common Council did their action, they left actually about $500,000 not in their official bond documentation. So very in the weeds of the bonds. Also, they financed the facility, right? They said in the bond that they passed in March that they completed a state environmental quality review for the project because, again, according to Seeker, you needed to complete Seeker before you can finance and construct a project. But it appears based on some of my foils and also, it appears that the city, that was a material misrepresentation, that the city did not complete Seeker before they did the bonds. There's actually, a material misrepresentation in the bond that should invalidate the financing for the facility. And then the final element of it is actually the city's green code. So the city of Buffalo Green Code does not actually have the term firing range or shooting range in it. So actually, if you search the city codes, that's just the rule book, the playbook of what you can build in the city. There is no language or prescription for a shooting firing range. So part of this case is actually that this construction of a firing range in the city of Buffalo, would set a precedent. So especially if it sets the precedent that you don't need to do an environmental review, if you don't need to do things properly, it sets the precedent of essentially anybody could then start a shooting range. Because right now it's unclear under the Green Code how if I, a citizen of the city of Buffalo wanted to set up a shooting range in my backyard, how could I do that? Where this case would actually set some precedent of, oh, well, you don't actually have to follow the procedures. So that's kind of the more technical argument. And then as I was in that wormhole of zoning code, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe because the city green code does not state anything about firing ranges, then the state's building code, so the New York State mechanical code, would then be kind of the set of rules. And actually, in the New York State mechanical code, under firing range, it says that if you want to build a firing range, there is a section on lead, and you need to meet the OSHA standards for lead, because these firing ranges, again, it's a firing range. It's a shooting range. They want to take the parking lot of Polonia Park and turn it into a shooting range. These shooting ranges create a lot of lead dust and pollution. And actually, some of the OSHA standards around lead require that all employees that are above, I think it's the PEL or the personal exposure level of lead, after their shift, they need to shower. So actually, if you want to build a firing range under New York State Mechanical Code, you need to have proper showering facilities so that employees can shower and clean, because it's required by OSHA, a workplace rule, that you have to have this lead remediation. Because essentially, earlier this year or last month in December, there was actually a zoning variance around the city essentially having a special use, or a variance to allow partial shading of there's a mechanical unit on the roof that's all about air filtering. And again, back to the seeker of the city should study how sound and lead is going to impact the community, right? How do people live next door? How is their life going to be impacted by being next to a shooting range? So that's kind of the other item. And I think next month is the scheduled hearing. So Lola et al. Is a lawsuit brought by Liberation for One, Liberation for All, and a few residents. And again, the lawsuit is a kind of a four-piece. There's one, the actual bonding of the facility, so that the city did not follow the procedures to finance the facility. There's two, the state environmental quality review. So the state did not file state environmental quality review properly for the facility. Three, that they're not authorized to build it because of the parkland, and the New York State Legislature needs to authorize the taking of parkland to change its use. And then also the firing range is not allowed under the city green code. So that's a kind of the 4 point, and I'll provide a little more information, but right for now, that's kind of the high level summary of the lawsuit. And I encourage people to donate to Lola if you'd like to support the legal fund. They're raising money to pay for legal fees, because unfortunately in New York State and the Common Council, they kind of just dare you, right? We have the power, sue us type of thing. So lawyers, their billable hours cost money. So donate to their campaign. If you go to lowellbuffalo.com, they have a fundraising tab. And then also they have a virtual interest meeting, I believe on January 24th. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely check them out and follow them. And this is a slow moving. I think we'll see with this new regime or new administration, how does the new corporation council of the city deal with this lawsuit? Is this lawsuit able to, put a hold and slow it down? We'll see. So yeah, that's the Austin's agenda. So three biggest things: the special election coming up for the New York State Senate seat, the police firing range lawsuit by Lola, and the Queen City Forward Kensington Expressway project. So let me give myself a rest from my audit mine, and let's move on to Metachewy Live, where Metachewy and I'm gonna maybe take you on where I've been exploring on the frontier of internet and meme culture. So I think it's 2026, so Happy New Year to everyone that's listening. It's a new year. So 2026 is actually the 30th year anniversary of 1996, which is crazy. But 1996 was actually the invention of Pokemon. So 2026, we're in the 30th year of Pokemon, which is a phenomenon. And I want to talk about, this is my old Pokemon binder. A lot of nostalgia around Pokemon cards, but we're in the 30th year, which is crazy because Pokemon has kind of grown to be, I believe it's the largest franchise, it's one of the largest brands in the world, right? It's this huge phenomenon. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, reflections on, I guess I feel like I'm the boomer of Pokemon because I remember the good old days. I remember roughly the invention of Pokemon. So I want to talk a little briefly about, just my personal journey. I guess I've been out of the game for a while. I joke I've been out of Pokemon since '99. This is one of my original binders, but I do have some trauma in my Pokemon. I was a huge advocate, and I want to take you back, and for all you Zoomers out there, take you back to 1999. That's when, it was invented in Japan in 1996, and it didn't reach the American shores till 1999. So put on your thinking caps, and we'll go on a journey back to 1999 from the perspective. I was 9 years old. I was in fourth grade. 1999, right? That was the 20th century, which is crazy, right? It's ancient history, and is also, I think, I look back on it finally. It felt like not only I was in fourth grade, so I was very innocent, but it felt like America itself was also very innocent when I think about it. This was pre 9/11, which is kind of hard to for people that weren't maybe around in 9/11. Just how much 9/11 in 2001, how much was different, how much changed that never went back. So I think 1999 you had, this was the Y2K scare. People didn't know if the computers and civilizations weren't going to crash when the computers had to go from 99 to 00. It was pre 9/11. It was really early internet culture hadn't spread out. I mean, you had dial up, but it wasn't it wasn't what it was today. So I think I can only speak for myself, but 1999 Pokemon was it was the confluence of Japanese culture meeting Western culture, and it was pre-internet. So as an American fourth grader, there was no really exposure to Japanese culture, which I think was it's kind of hard to explain how big of a phenomenon Pokemon cards were in 1999. I mean, it's still a craze, right? People are still crazy about Pokemon, but 1999 was it was Pokemon fever. It was everywhere. It was really this mania, and I think it was because it was like this clashing of cultures. I think prior to 99, there was nothing like Pokemon in the United States. I think maybe Disney and Mickey Mouse was the closest, but just the idea that you had monsters, it was just this whole thing. So, I said I've been out of the game because I had a lot of trauma from 99, because actually in fourth grade, I was at a sleepover, and I was, a rabid Pokemon fan. I was, collecting cards, and I had a lot of amazing Pokemon cards, and I left my binder at a sleepover and never saw them again. So there was a kind of trauma, which is why I kind of abandoned Pokemon. But recently I have maybe it's a terminal illness. I have Pokemon fever. But it's really an individual called the Kabuto King, who is this internet personality on Twitter. And I think Autism Capital, who's a Twitter account, he kind of first gave him fame of, hey, there's this autist on the internet that's collecting all first edition Kabuto cards. So you actually I have a first edition Kabuto here. The Kabuto King kind of started collecting this Kabuto, which is a common Pokemon. He was collecting first edition cards. So as I speak now, he's assembled a collection of 2,000 plus Kabuto cards, it was just crazy. And he kind of went viral on Twitter. And I first heard about him, and it got me inspired to look through my binder that I got here and just see, do I have any Kabuto or whatnot? And so for me, he kind of has reignited my passion for Pokemon. And this past week, actually, there was a Buffalo trading card con Pokemon event right around the block from me. So I was able to go there and yeah, just been really kind of reliving the nostalgia of Pokemon cards. And I do have some here that I wanted to take a look talk about the base set because that's what I was into. So base set Pokemon cards, yeah, the base set. So 1999, the original printing is kind of my childhood set, but the base set was really now they're called vintage cards. But I wanted to kind of dive into the actual base set. So I got a couple base sets. really just blown away at I went to this first Pokemon card convention, was just how much Pokemon's changed, how many colors and there's just modern sets, postmodern. There's this whole universe, and I just feel like I was in a time capsule going to it, and it was awesome. I think one of my favorite parts of going to this actual event was kind of just even meeting the people there. It was cool meeting people. There's one trader specifically who I ended up buying a lot of his first edition sets. He like appreciated that I appreciated vintage, and I don't know, I felt like a boomer for sure, because going there, I seemed to be the only person that was like looking. I was looking for first edition set and shadowless sets, and right, even somebody every Charmander, right? Charizard is the most popular character in the Pokemon game, and he starts as a Charmander. And every Charmander, right, their birthright is Charizard. It's their rite of passage to become. It's their birthright to become a Charizard. But in order to become a Charizard, they need to go through a rite of passage, which is being a Charmeleon. And I think I just like the Charmeleon. I think he's underappreciated. People love Charmander because he's a cute little baby Charizard, and people obviously love Charizard because it's a badass Charizard, but Charmeleon himself is kind of underappreciated, which I don't know, that he's kind of a little bit of an underdog, and I'm hoping to get involved. I think there's a vendor show in April that I'm going to try to start collecting vintage Pokemon cards. So if you have vintage Pokemon cards in your attic, in your garage, anywhere, just I don't know, let me know. I'm interested, or even just checking them out. There is a trade night at Dave and Adams tomorrow, which I'm just gonna keep checking out the scene because it's very. I got the Pokemon fever. Maybe I've been sick and out of the game since '99, but I'm back in it. And
can I make a slight change?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where's your overhead? Sick. Okay, you now have audio.
So that just on this view, nobody could hear anything?
Correct.
Okay. Let me try it again then.
Okay. Do you want me to do anything with the timer?
Maybe move it back like 5 minutes.
Sure. All right. Here we go. How's that?
Good. This one's got audio.
Yeah, you got audio. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm seeing it right here.
Well, thank you, Mick, for your technical assistance. It's much appreciated. Hopefully that was just the dry one. Maybe I'll jump into a second version. But yeah, Happy New Year. It's 2026. And 2026 is the 30th anniversary of 1996, which is actually the invention of Pokemon. So 1996, was the invention of Pokemon. It was first started in Japan. And I'm big into Pokemon. I joke I've been out of the game since 1999. So I wanted to do a segment to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Pokemon. So I want everyone to close their eyes for a bit and imagine yourself in 1999. This was pre 9/11. This was the 20th century. So it's, in my eyes, I was in fourth grade, but it was a very nostalgic era for sure. Especially, I think not only was I innocent as someone in fourth grade to how the world works, but also I think our country was very innocent, right? This was pre 9/11. Right on the cusp of internet. I mean, we had dial up, but not really the internet culture that we have today. So really, 1999, when Pokemon came to the United States for the first time from Japan, there was this Pokemania. It was wild being there. It was this phenomenon. I think it was so big because it was really the introduction of Japanese culture into the United States. So 1999, yeah, Pokemon cards. It was really the birth of what we see, the modern Pokemon. And I think Pokemon's grown into one of the largest, if not the largest brand in the world. It's a global phenomenon at this point. I really think the only thing similar is really Disney and maybe Mickey Mouse and some of the vintage characters there. But yeah, Pokemon was a phenomenon, and I wanted to jump a little bit. I've been out of the game, and a little bit about my story. I've been out of the game since '99 because I was an avid collector back in that era. This is one of my binders. I'm sad to say that I lost my good binder, or my big binder with all my good cards. I left it at a sleepover in fourth grade and never saw it again, which I think for me, there's been a lot of trauma there, right? I lost my cards, which today probably would have been able to buy me. I wouldn't have a 9 to 5, let's say that, if I still had my original binder. And yeah, there's lots of trauma. But recently there's a phenomenon called Kabuto King that's re-inspired me or maybe reignited my Pokemon fever. So the Kabuto King is a pseudo name of a Twitter account. He was first, I think, not unveiled, but he came to the Twitter consciousness by an account called Autism Capital. And Autism Capital tweeted out, hey, there's this autist on the internet who's collecting all these first edition Kabuto cards. So this is a first edition Kabuto. I'll see over here, the overhead. So first edition Kabuto is just a card that has a 1 here. And this is Kabuto. He's a common Pokemon, or he's not greatly appreciated, but this account, the Kabuto King, just started collecting just this single card. So he had tweeted out pictures of his collection. I think as I record this in early January, he now has 2,500 first edition Kabutos. And this was kind of an interesting moment, I think, in Pokemon lore, because it was the first time really, at least in my kind of consciousness, of the Pokemon then meeting the virality of Twitter. So then you had a lot of other kind of imposter accounts setting up, collecting other cards. But I know for me, other people on the internet, he kind of re-inspired my passion for it. And he had me going back and looking through my old binder to see if I had any Kabutos. And yeah, it really just got me back into the Pokemon craze. And yeah, so I've been deep in that wormhole, whether it's looking on eBay for bulk sets and yeah, trying to buy cards. And also there was a Buffalo Card Con this past weekend around the corner for me. So I went and checked that out for 2 days. And as I call myself the boomer of Pokemon, because I've literally been out of the game since '99, it was amazing how much has changed and just the amount of modern sets, mid-era. And I guess my boomer moment in Pokemon was going there and, talking about Pokemon cards, and now they're called vintage cards. So the set I collected are called base set. But let's look at some Pokemon cards here that I've got. So as I said, 1996, we're in the 30th anniversary of Pokemon cards. And it's a Japanese invention, right? So these are some early Japanese cards. We have the Charmander, Charmeleon. I was super into these as a kid just because, yeah, the Japanese language, there's something about the look of Japanese cards. I don't even know what this is, but yeah, the hologram version of it. And here's a Togepi. And yeah, the Japanese cards are kind of distinct, and they have a different back than an American card with a Pokemon. So yeah, these are the 30th anniversary. These are original Japanese cards. But I wanted to talk about the base set. So the base set, technically as they're called, essentially just the original Pokemon cards. These are the first ones that I was collecting as a kid, but essentially they're the first print run of Pokemon cards in the US. So there's a variation between the sets, which I'm going to look at now. So yeah, the base set, or what they're called today is vintage Pokemons, which made me, as I said, feel like a boomer. But these are base set prints. So these are the original first run of Pokemon cards in the United States. They're called the base set, but there's kind of variations which I wanted to dive into. I guess the first one is this is a first edition. So has this first edition sticker here. This is the first run of Pokemon cards in the United States, which to collectors is worth a lot. And I know when I'm collecting cards, I'm super into this set of the first run, because you're literally like buying a piece of history of this is at the foundational layer of what Pokemon is today. These are setting the foundation for all these characters: Charmeleon, Charizard. So really, these are hard to come by because these were printed in 1999, and I don't think anyone had any idea that was involved how popular or if they were going to be popular. I think if you had bet money on the time, you probably would have thought that this Pokemon thing would amount to nothing. So that's the first edition, and then these two are different. That they're called the Shadowless. So you see here, the only difference between these two is this one has a 1 here, and this one doesn't. But these are that's the only difference between these cards, and these are the very first early print of Pokemon cards. They're called the Shadowless because they don't have a shadow right here. So you'll see these two cards, same card, but this one, the color is a little lighter, but also there's no shadow here, where this box has a shadow. So at some point, these two are fairly rare because these are the first ones. So these were printed before anyone had any idea if it was going to be popular or not. So there's much fewer of these. These are the earliest prints of Pokemon cards. And then when Pokemon, mania was taking grip on the country, the Charmeleon and this shadow is it's called just an unlimited set. So these are kind of the base set, or as they're called today, vintage. But there's variations of them, and there's also a fourth later print that the only difference is on the fine print here. There's the year 2000, but it's kind of only for the technocrats of the Pokemon world. These are base set Charmeleons, and I think kind of by Kabuto, I've been inspired to collect, I think, these kinds. So the base set Shadowless Charmeleons. So I've just started collecting Charmeleons, because I think for the first time, you almost have this, it's like the frontier of internet culture of you have this nostalgia of millennials that are like, remember Pokemon, but also it's meeting kind of the frontiers of Twitter, right? Twitter culture, and even the crypto community's been big because there's a lot of scarcity around vintage cards, which I know crypto is about. And I think there's a new I think Pokemon cards are slowly becoming an asset class, right? There's people that don't trust the Bank of America or Wells Fargo or financial providers with their retirement money, but there's millennials and people that think that Pokemon cards are worth it, and there's a whole marketplace. And I think that was kind of one of the things that obviously financialization has always been a part of Pokemon card culture, right? Everyone wants to pull the hologram Charizard because it's worth the most, and there is that still in the modern set. I think there's lots of people, and there's this whole subculture of grading, which I'm pretty ignorant to, of the quality of the card. So if one card has a little dot on it or maybe a little nick on it, it's worth less. There's the whole, people treat Pokemon cards like financialization, but I feel like there's a need to keep the soul of Pokemon or appreciate, right, just the artwork and the quality of what Pokemon cards are, not really just view them as just a financialization. Because to my eye, as a boomer or a vintage Pokemon collector, I don't really have anything to like about kind of the modern card. At least I was trying to educate myself, because I've just felt like I was in a time capsule, because it's really kind of amazing to see how much Pokemon has grown, and just 30 years. So to think how far it's grown and how much different, I was very overwhelmed. My senses were overstimulated, because there's just so many new Pokemon, so many new types of cards, and there's a need to be the adults in the room that lecture the children about vintage cards and how vintage cards are the real one. I'm gotten back into Pokemon cards over the break, I'm interested in collecting Charmeleons, but also I think there's an event coming up. So I think one of my favorite things about the event was, even I was showing this card before my audio got cut. Somebody just gave me this card because they didn't have a Charmeleon that I was looking for, but they just gave me a free card because it was my first show, and it was cool just meeting people. And there's person there that I met that, I bought a lot of his earlier sets, and he appreciated that I appreciated vintage. So I feel like it was even cool just, meeting the community, learning about new cards, and also teaching people about the base set, because there's really not an appreciation of the print runs. And at this point, it's very much early part of Pokemon lore. There's not much information about the print runs. So that's Pokemon 30th anniversary. I'll probably be doing some more segments on it, but for now, that's the second period. So now I wanted to move into the third period of the Metachewy podcast, which is Austin audits. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the audit work I've been doing regarding City Hall. And I think the first one would be, I'm proud, and I don't know, I have no evidence to contradict this, but I think I filed the first FOIL request of the Mayor Sean Ryan administration, because I have FOIL 26.1. So I think I filed the first FOIL request with the new mayor and in the new year, which I think would be kind of a cool thing. But I've my FOIL request, or a Freedom of Information law, which is a law that allows any citizen to get information from the government. So data, information, report, any government record, right? It's we the people. So those government records, although there's a few types of records that aren't allowable, but public records, government records for the most part are property of the people. So the Freedom of Information law is an amazing law that I've gotten into that allows anyone to just ask the government for anything. And there's nuance to how you can request it, but you can request information. So I've requested a fund agreement, and I think this takes me to one of the items. So before the break, I was monitoring the council finance committee and the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, which is one of the largest philanthropic entities in our region, was in the chambers, and they've set up a transition fund for the new administration. It's called the City of Buffalo Transition and Transformation Fund, and it's intended to support the city of contributions. So essentially, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo has set up a fund that, from my understanding, based on the discussion in the chamber, the mayor of the city can make a request to the Community Foundation requesting money for anything related to efficiency, innovation, talent, or other needs, or like consultant studies. The way based on discussion, it works is that there's a tribunal of the Ralph Wilson Foundation, the Community Foundation, and the John R. L. Shai Foundation have this fund, and the heads of those entities then, disburse or reimburse the request if it's appropriate. And I think this is appropriate for a first FOIL, because it's just, I know I have concerns of it's almost this legalized way of money laundering in a bit of if somebody can give money to a foundation and then that foundation can give it to administration, you can't FOIL or you can't see who's donating money. So it's almost this way for the business community, the philanthropic sector, to pass money legally to the administration. And a lot of the discussion too about the transition fund is it's really going to go toward paying bureaucrats and like consultants, which based on my experience working at City Hall, the city's SAS Institute agreement, which was a $2.2 million contract where the city hired these expert, innovative consultants and never got anything out of it. It was just a lot of similarities to that. And I think it says a lot that the philanthropic sector was quick to support, I think the first, and it was almost the way for this administration to say, oh, we didn't know what, I don't know, it's just this weird situation of, it was very clear that the first payments from this fund are going to go support the new deputy mayor's salary. So almost kind of compensate the deputy mayors who I think have reported salaries at $200,000. And I think it just opens up this weird wormhole of, well, if you're getting your salary from the John R. L. Shai Foundation, the Wilson Foundation, or the Community Foundation, right? Who do you work for? It creates this weird conflict of interest, especially with not knowing who's donating, especially at the Community Foundation. And for all transparency, I used to work at the Community Foundation. It's this weird mix of kind of high finance and like Wall Street with community and the nonprofit sector. And I think one of the hypocrisies that I just saw when I was there, and they don't want you to know, but I'll tell you, is that they prioritize their investment return. So an example is that one of their community goals is the environment, but at the same time, when you looked at their investment portfolio, they prioritize investment performance. So they're all tied up in oil, gas, if it can make them returns, they're all for it. But at the same time, they're marketing themselves as someone that stewards the environment. I think it just sets up, especially with, the business community here in the city, right? There's lots of developers and that sit on the boards of philanthropic institutions and also are permitting. So it sets up this weird agreement where you have this entity, the Community Foundation, especially one of the new deputy mayors, Maria White, she came from the Community Foundation. So it almost feels like kind of the very wealthy in Buffalo exerting influence. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I think it's right. We need the foundations chipping in, especially with the city facing this fiscal cliff we're heading towards, because the city is out of money, and I see massive tax increases. The water rates are going up. User fees are going up, but at the same time, so it's just this weird situation of if and I would love to see the cities, right? Buffalo's typically marketed as a poor city, and there's lots of poverty, unfortunately, amongst a lot of the working class people, but Buffalo's also a very rich city. There's lots of old money tied up at the Community Foundation. I think they have nearly $1 billion in assets. In the Oshai Foundation, there's the Wilson Foundation, which is building, right? Ralph Wilson has essentially bought the government here. I would love to see them put their money where their mouth is. And if you can pay for bureaucrat salary and consultants, couldn't you then maybe wipe out working class water debt? Could you, pay back sewer fees and taxes? Could you invest in our infrastructure? I think, I think it's just very telling that this fund's been set up just for consultants, just for bureaucrat salaries, but not, I don't know. We'll see. And that's why I've essentially just foiled for the agreement. I'm curious what's in the agreement, especially how the disbursement of requests works. That's why my FOIL request 26-1 is seeking, this information. And just, I'm FOIL 26-1 is looking just for the fund agreement before the Community Foundation in the city of Buffalo. And we'll see. They have 5 days to respond, and then there's a period, but I'm hopefully, as this is something I'll be follow. I think just based on my experience at the city, at the Community Foundation, and even with my experience at the city working on a SaaS innovation contract where a lot of the buzzwords were used, I'm just curious in learning more, and hopefully the new administration sticks up to their promise for transparency and provides me with that document, and I'd be glad to provide that, and probably enough that when I got that. So FOIL 26-1, the first FOIL request of the new administration, looking for the fund agreement between the city of Buffalo and the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, and just seeing what the agreement is and the actual legal contract. Okay, I guess, and I wanted to close it out here with another item on Austin audits. As some of you may or may not know, I'm on a civil service crusade. I was fired from City Hall. I've done some deep dives on that. Long story short, I was hired to a provisional job, which is a type of temporary job until a civil service exam is held. And long story short, I was hired provisionally, and then they never held a civil service exam. So they essentially kept me provisionally, which means, they took away my rights. They could fire me at will, which they ended up doing. So I'm on this civil service crusade, one, because what they did to me was wrong. One, and two, they're doing this to a lot of people. So in civil service is obviously a very bland dry, but I think the reason, and I thought, should I keep going? Should I not keep going? What's the point of this all? I think the big important thing to know is that even the comptroller's reports identifies fringe benefits or personnel costs. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, portion of the city budget is going towards is civil service. It's personnel service costs, it's health insurance, it's fringe benefits for employees. So it's this large slice of pie that even the comptroller herself has said is one. It has the biggest surface area for fraud, because there's high risks, because you have these bureaucrats that are dealing with lots of money with really no oversight. Especially one of the structural issues with city civil service in our in the city is one, there's no civil service appeal board. So the charter outlines there's supposed to be this board that people that are hurt by decisions of the Human Resources Commissioner can file complaints. They conduct research and file a report with the Commissioner of Human Resources. And to my knowledge, that board is not functioning. So there's no actual appeal structure. And two, the city's Human Resources Commissioner there used to be, back in the day, there was a municipal civil service commissions. There's actually like a 3 person tribunal that would oversee, human resource issues, and that was kind of set up to have not be political, right? Obviously, it's City Hall, it's politics, so these jobs are very political, and by having a human resources commission of 3 people, it was kind of that way previously to, help kind of get rid of some of the conflict of interest. And then I think it was in 2002, they actually changed the charter where now we just have a single human resources commissioner. So you have a single human resources commissioner, Gladys Herndon Hill, or Gigi. Right, she's the single point of power. There is no appeal board. It's not functioning. So she is essentially the judge, jury, and executioner of the human resources department in the city, which again, there's this huge slice of the city budget, which is personnel services, fringe benefits, and you have one person who is the judge, jury, executioner. They set the rules, and there's no way to challenge them other than suing them. Essentially, these are just my perceptions too, and I'm alleging all this. This isn't facts. I mean, verify, don't trust. The issue I have too with my employment was that my actual union president, Tracy Healy, she wears 2 hats, and I'm the son of an auditor, and in accounting, there's this principle called segregation of duties. Right. So ideally, if you're designing a financial system or some sort of system, you segregate duties. Right. So if you're a small, right, the football analogy, you segregate duties. You segregate coaching and refereeing, because if those people are the same person, it creates issues. Obviously, because if you had someone coaching a team and refereeing the team, they have these 2 duties that compete with each other. Or if you're a small organization, say you're, Johnny's Boy Scout troop, you ideally wouldn't have the same person taking money in and recording money in a ledger. The collection of money and the recording of money would be separate so that it wouldn't tempt people. Because even the most trustworthy people under stress, right? If you don't segregate duties, you're essentially trusting that they don't break the rules. And Tracy Healy, in my case, there's a segregation of duty concerns because she not only was she my union president, she's also works for Gigi in the human resources department as a personnel specialist. So I believe my termination was retaliatory for essentially I filed a grievance after I had been there for 9 months saying, hey, I want to take a civil service exam for my position so I can be a permanent employee, have employment rights, and be in my job. And this grievance, I believe, it put Tracy Healy's conflict of interest into the spotlight, because one, she had to represent me because she's my union president, but then she also works for Gigi in the human resources department, and she's part of the party who I'm filing agreements against because it's the human resources department and civil service that didn't offer the civil service exam. And this, they were able to fire me at will, and I was not able to have the collective bargaining rights, and they're doing this systemically. This is not just me. This is something they do. I met a gentleman in the council chambers. He said he knew a guy that was kept provisional for 18 years, which is crazy. And I guess the reason why I've kind of kept going on is, one, I think Tracy Healy, she needs to be terminated, is my position. I think that's how you fix the segregation of duty. She can be the union president. She can be elected by them, but she shouldn't be, as a taxpayer, I don't want to be paying her salary, especially she is just someone that has poor moral character and is not someone that has integrity. So that would be one. I think, right, as the city tries to climb out of this budget conundrum we're in, right, the city has limited tax dollars. We need to have the best, brightest people in those seats, and you do that through, and not political hacks. And the way you do that is by having exams that filter people out for who's the most competent, who is the most skill and knowledge, and then you give those people the protection to do their job. And sometimes being a civil servant, it's not about being popular. It's about doing the job properly and doing it right. If you have this system where it just creates this culture of fear in City Hall where people can't do their job, because in my case, I started speaking out, not just about my civil service exam, but about the fraud that's gone on about the $2.2 million SAS contract. And ultimately I was retaliated against, while someone that, my direct supervisor, Kirk McLean, got a job promotion, which seems very backwards to me, but that's just how the reality works. So first circle why I say it is I've been in communication with the Common Council, and I filed an item with Danny Sanders, who is also another civil servant, requesting to speak with the Common Council Civil Service Committee around this specific issue, around our civil service, around our experiences with Gigi, and just the tyrant and judge, jury, and executioner that she is. And I'm very, for the first time I've enjoyed yeah, the council's giving me the opportunity to speak. Me and Danny Sanders, we're scheduled to be in the council chambers in, I think it's January 22nd, or yeah, later this month, which I'll provide. But that's yeah, that's kind of where we're at there. And yeah, the controller has said that it's the highest risk for fraud. It has both the highest volume of money and lack of internal controls. Two, we know fraud's going on, right? The investigative post reported a few years ago now that there was a fire clerk that was on the city payroll for 7 years after getting fired. And there's rumors of how that happened, but essentially the city had a ghost employee. And one of my questions was, how many other ghost employees are there? And actually Tracy Healy was involved in that too, because she was the union president. And then myself, I found them, right, they were stealing wages from me because, yeah, I never authorized them to take my union dues, which is something. So yeah, there is fraud going on. There's a lot of surface area and potential for fraud. So I think bringing attention to the civil service of our city is very important because there's just no oversight. There's no appeals board to appeal to. You can't file any grievance because there's a segregation of duty concerns in the human resources process. And yeah, Gigi is just, in my experience, and it just seems to be a bit of a tyrant and needs to be brought to heel. So yeah, more on that I think later, but I'm just kind of optimistic, and I am optimistic that yeah, maybe something will be addressed, and people that have the disenfranchised people that have been, you know, kept out of City Hall might have a potential to get in there and help. Because ultimately this is about us Buffalonians getting the most bang for our buck on our tax dollars, having the most competent, trustworthy people with integrity in City Hall. And you do that not through patronage and, you know, being a political hacks and hiring the friends and family, but by having open, transparent, neutral civil service exams that determine who gets to ultimately serve the taxpayers. So yeah, so that's the last bit of Austin audits. And I wanted to close with something that's popular, kind of with the Pokemon theme. I know people open packs. Opening packs of Pokemon is a big phenomenon, but I've been a bit crazy. Maybe one of my impulses is buying cards on TCG. So I'm going to open one of my deliveries from eBay because I had a moment one night that I went a little crazy, bought a couple cards. So we're going to do a live opening. I ordered these cards, but it's been so long now that I don't know what's in it. So we're going to do a surprise opening here. I think the Charmeleons are a good backdrop, but we'll see. I ordered a couple different cards, so I'm excited to open up what this is. And I did make a note from Richard earlier, remembrances of things. I'll look it up. But yeah, I don't know what that is, but maybe it's a future episode. So let's see what we got here in this eBay. I either bought this on eBay or TCG. And that's what's fun about buying cards all in bulk at once is when you get them in the mail. It feels like Christmas every day. So let's see. And each person's different. Oh, it's the mysteries. I think this is my receipt. But yeah, let's see what's in here. Very effectively packed. Oh, it looks, let me open it up. Upside down so we can't see it. Ooh, look at these new Pokemon cards. These are used. Let's see what I ordered because I don't know. I don't know. I ordered these, but I don't know what they are. So let's see what they are. Okay, first one. Oh, a red energy. Second one. Oh, a Jinx. So this is a shadowless, I said earlier, a shadowless Jinx. Nice. Let's see what this one is. Oh, a Poliwhirl. So it's a shadowless Poliwhirl. Next one. Oh, it's a Charmeleon. So another shadowless Charmeleon becomes a Charmzar. And this is the final one. Let's see what it is. Oh, another Charmeleon. Another shadowless Charmeleon. What are the chances? So yeah, I think I'll cover some more cards, but yeah, that was this set, and I'm collecting these shadowless cards because I think they're criminally underpriced and underrated because they were right there with the first edition, but they're very few because they were kind of printed before the phenomenon came on. So I'm wrapping up the show, so I appreciate everyone yeah, tuning in. So a little bit of politics, a little bit of meme culture, and yeah, everybody keep safe out there from Pokemon Mania, because with the 30th anniversary, I think it's going to sweep our nation again. So until next time, that's Metachewy. So Metachewy out. Thanks for tuning in.